beautiful butterflies, and welcome to episode 3 of Once Upon a Spoiler. I am your host, Samantha Sanderson, almost alien, and yes, I'm gonna say that until I'm married. I hope you all are doing well. I'm so excited to get into this episode. It's certainly a juicy one. But before we do get into the episode, I would just like to take a moment to talk to you guys. First off, in the last episode, I realized that I forgot to add in my favorite line, so I figured this was the perfect opportunity to, and it is at the very end of the episode when Mr. Gold tells Regina, and I quote, "I would say you think you know exactly who she is." That moment just felt so powerful to me and definitely stood out in the entire episode, so that's why I chose that specific one. Next, I wanted to talk to you guys about why it's been taking me so long to release these episodes and why I haven't been doing one on Tuesdays as we had originally planned. I am literally doing all of this on my own, from notes to editing the photos to editing my recordings, doing everything else for the podcast. So between that and planning for my wedding, my daughter just started school, so I'm trying to soak up every moment that I can with her. And regular day-to-day life, I was having issues with my scheduling, but with that being said, I will have more time to work on this while my daughter is at school. So from now on, there's no reason why my time management can't improve and episodes released on time as originally planned. Moving on from that, there wasn't really any deleted scenes for this episode. I was able to find some short clips of the actors and actresses fumbling over their words, which is always funny. I just really wish that there was more content there. I would love to see some more of that behind the scenes footage. And honestly, during the last episode, I really liked the way that we sprinkled in those talking points, so we are going to continue to do it like that. It just seemed to go a lot smoother, so we're just going to continue with that. Now, having gotten all of that out of the way, what do you say we go ahead and get to this good stuff? This here is Season 1, Episode 3 of Once Upon a Time, titled Snow Falls. Directed by Dean White, edited by Liz Tegeler, and the air date was November 6, 2011. Behind the logo, we see a man with shoulder-length hair holding a dagger. The episode opens up to a beautiful castle, then we see some pretty green trees. There's a pathway wide enough for a single carriage and a deer right off to the left side, but it runs away when we see the white carriage being drawn by 2 horses flanked with knights. The camera goes into the carriage to show who we know to be Prince Charming with Princess Abigail, and I have to say that dress that she has on is absolutely gorgeous and I love it. The color is just beautiful. Charming looks down at a small bag he's holding and the carriage stops because of a fallen tree in the pathway, or roadway if you will. The carriage is then robbed of a bag and Charming takes a horse so he can go after the thief. When he knocks the thief off the other horse and tackles them, he learns that it's a woman and we recognize her to be Snow White. She knocks him on the chin with a rock, giving him the scar that we love, and rides off with the horse again. Charming yells at her, "Wherever you are, I will find you," the line we all know and love, and we're taken back to Storybrooke. First talking point right here, how ironic is it that the first time Snow and Charming meet, he's tackling her down and she knocks him in the face with a rock. But I love how she stated that she's a woman, not a girl. That part, I really appreciated as a woman myself. And I'm just like, what, we can't do some bad behind stuff too? Psh, come on now. We all know better than that. Moving on. Mary Margaret and Dr. Whale are on a date at Granny's diner. First, we hear them talking about Mary's job, and then she goes into what she wants out of life and a true committed relationship. Meanwhile, Dr. Whale is constantly staring at Ruby while she's working. Mary notices and asks Ruby for the check so that she can leave. Mary begins to walk home until she sees Emma in her yellow car looking for a place to stay in the newspaper. Mary is happy that Emma decided to stay for Henry, and they point out how there are no available homes in the town and that it must be because of the curse in a joking manner, but it's really funny to us because they're totally right. Just saying. Mary tells Emma about her date and then offers for Emma to stay in her spare room until she can find a place of her own. Emma turns her down, saying that she does better on her own. But the look in her eyes when Mary tells her goodnight and walks away was very emotional, and she was clearly touched and torn at the same time. Touched because Mary cares enough to offer her a place to stay, and torn because she's so used to being on her own and only depending on herself. A few talking points right here. The way Mary Margaret was looking at Dr. Whale when she called for Ruby and requested the check, I truly appreciated that. It was like, yes, you're horrible. Yes, I noticed. How could I not? And this is definitely the end of whatever this is. Also, I want to know what part of the clock tower belongs to what, because when Snow is walking down the road after leaving her horrible first date with Dr. Whale, if you look at the second floor of the building, there's lights on and what appears to be a TV screen as well. You should all go back and check for that. And I'm sorry, but I have to point out that tank top is awfully see through that Emma has on when Mary's talking to her about staying in her car. And I'm sorry, y'all, but I had to say something about that. I mean, perhaps her clothes are simply dirty because she has no way to wash them, and that could be why Henry gives her Regina's shirt, right? I mean, that would be my best guess as to why she's wearing that particular shirt, but it's really see through, you guys. Okay, moving on. Next, we see Mary Margaret with her students at the hospital. She notices Henry in a separate room with the glass windows, and he's about to touch John Doe's face before she stops him. Henry is acting a tad strange and asks Miss Blanchard if she knows who John Doe is. She tells him that she doesn't, just that she brings him flowers on her rounds. They don't know what's wrong with him, just that he's been in a coma for as long as she's been volunteering at the hospital. Henry points out that John Doe is all alone and doesn't have anyone to care for him before asking Mary if she's sure she doesn't recognize him. She tells him no, and they go back with the others to continue to help decorate. We are then taken to Henry's castle where him and Emma are talking, and he tells Emma about her father and that he's the one in the coma from the hospital. Henry wants to tell Miss Blanchard that he is her true love, but Emma convinces him to let her talk to Mary Margaret about reading the book to John Doe so that he might remember who he was. When she does talk to Mary Margaret about it, Mary sees that this is a very clever way to get Henry to discover the truth on his own, and Emma agrees and says that he won't be hurt this way, which, in my opinion, is still a messed up way of trying to get Henry to see their truth, but I digress. Anyway, Mary agrees and says that she'll get ready for her date and that she'll have to do all the talking, which is just hilarious. Um, The camera pans away to Mary sitting beside John Doe in his hospital bed, and she begins to read the book. Suddenly, his hand moves and touches hers. Mary Margaret is very surprised at this, and she goes to get Dr. Whale. Whale tries to convince Mary that John didn't move and perhaps she fell asleep. He also convinces her to leave, and as soon as she does, he immediately calls Mayor Mills to tell her what happened. Of course, she's very angry at this news, but we go right back to Mary, and she's sitting in her bed with the storybook, and she continues to read what she was reading to John Doe before. And I have some talking points for right here. First off, I love so much the whole liking cinnamon and hot cocoa thing, and the fact that it runs through the family is just absolutely adorable. And it also makes me wonder something too. You guys can totally email me to let me know what you think about this too, but if Snow White's mother had ever had the chance to try hot chocolate, would she have liked it with the cinnamon too? I mean, it totally makes sense. Like, it's just, it was a thought that I had, and I thought it was kind of cute, so I wanted to share it with you guys. But yeah, feel free to email me and tell me what you think about that. The next talking point, I absolutely love how Mary gave John Doe a little talk before she started reading the book to him while he's in the coma. I thought it was cute and funny at the same time. I also love how into the story she gets, and I wonder how long she really sat there reading to him while he was just pretending to be asleep like that. And I haven't said this yet, but I'm going to now. I absolutely hate the way Dr. Whale made Mary Margaret feel about the whole John touching her hand situation. Like, I get why he did it, I just don't like it. And please allow me to once again give my compliments to the creators of this show. I mean, they are pure genius, and I truly love and appreciate how they pull the camera closer to a picture in Henry's book, and then it transformed to the real thing, and suddenly we're right back in the Enchanted Forest. It's just beautiful and phenomenal, and I love the way that they do that every single time. We find Snow White packing up to leave her temporary home she's made herself when suddenly she's caught in a net trap and is hanging from a tree. Prince Charming has found his thief. Now, this scene right here is absolutely incredible for so many reasons. This is when he gets the name Charming, and it's the first time he's quote unquote found her. And the way that he was smiling at her and laughing when she was hanging from that tree, there was just something about it that's so genuine and so bright. I had to bring that up. So Charming wants to know what happened to the pouch she stole from him, and he tells her that there was a ring that belonged to his mother in it, and it's very important to him. They talk about his marriage arrangements, and Snow calls out everything that's happening. Charming then shows her a wanted poster of her and tells Snow that if she doesn't help him get his ring back, then he will turn her into the Queen's guards. Snow reluctantly agrees, and he cuts the rope, and Snow falls to the ground. Snow falls. I wonder if that's how they got the name for the episode. Either that, or it's because she falls in love with him. Just saying. Back to Storybrooke to find Emma and Henry at Granny's diner, where Henry has given Emma one of Regina's shirts. They met there for the full report of what happened with John Doe, and Emma can't help but wonder how Henry managed to get out of the house and away from Regina. He told Regina that he was going to go play whack-a-mole, and she, quote-unquote, wanted to believe it, so she does, and Emma finds this line very ironic, but then they see Mary walking through the door. Emma tells Henry not to get his hopes up, and her smile to Mary when she sat down was just perfect and said all we needed to know. Mary tells them what happened, and Henry's hopes are shot way up. They leave to go try to read to him again, but when they arrive at the hospital, they discover that he's missing. No one seems to know where he is, and Regina is there because she's his emergency contact and the person that apparently found him on the side of the road. Now, I have to ask, is that really where he landed when the curse took them to Storybrooke, or is that all just part of her cover story? Just something I was thinking about. Regina is understandably upset with Henry because he lied to her about being at the arcade when really he was with Emma. Honestly, I like that angry look on Emma's face too when Regina grabs Henry's arm. That was just fantastic. Mary Margaret is understandably worried and wants to know what happened, but, as I said before, at this point, no one knows. Henry thinks that Regina has something to do with John Doe going missing, but this time she is innocent. Emma wants to help find him, but Regina doesn't want her to. She takes Henry's hand and they leave, with Regina making a remark to Emma about her shirt, as well as telling the sheriff that time is precious when it comes to finding John Doe. Sheriff Graham begins to question some of the hospital staff, and they check the security footage, but Emma is the only one that realizes they're looking at the wrong tapes at first. They find the right one and see that John Doe walked out of a door alone that leads directly into the woods. Honestly, I like the little argument that Leroy and Walter have about Walter sleeping on the job and Leroy drinking while doing his. It was perfect given who they are in the Enchanted Forest. Leroy's grumpy and Walter's sleepy. I thought that was funny. So we're taken back to the Enchanted Forest to find Snow and Charming on their journey to find his ring. He takes the magic dust that's hanging around her neck and asks her about it. She explains that it can turn anyone into a form that is easily squashed, and that she's saving it for a special someone. He immediately knows it's the evil queen, but she tells him that she is innocent of the crime she's being accused of. She also tells him about the huntsman that was sent to kill her, but he let her go, and ever since she's been hiding, trying to save enough money so that she can leave to go somewhere where she can never be hurt. He says that it sounds lonely, and she basically says that his arranged marriage will be lonely too. I'm sorry, I thought that was funny. They talk about how she came upon robbing his carriage when she thought it was one of the queen's carriages because that's the only person she steals from, but him and his fiancée were taking the scenic route. They come across a river. Snow tells him that she's thirsty, and she uses this as a way to try to run away from him with his money. Snow runs into some knights who happen to be riding along the pathway on some horses, and they approach her with a blade, saying that they are going to give the queen her heart. She doesn't have her magic dust and therefore has no way to protect herself, and the camera fades back to Storybrooke, where Sheriff Graham, Emma, and Mary Margaret are looking for John Doe. At this point, Graham is clearly frustrated because he's having a bit of trouble tracking John. Mary and Emma talk for a moment about how Emma came to finding people as her job and how she was adopted just like Henry, and her parents are the reason that she started doing it. Mary asks Emma if she ever found her parents, to which Emma responds, "Depends who you ask." Mary is obviously confused at this statement, but she doesn't have long to think on it because Henry comes running up behind them with a flashlight, determined to help them find John Doe, aka Prince Charming. Henry proposes the idea that John Doe is looking for Mary Margaret, and then we're taken right back to the forest to find Snow White being shoved up against the tree by the evil queen's knights, and the one with no face covering is about to cut her heart out. Charming comes to the rescue, throwing a dagger into the back of the knight that's about to cut her heart out, and begins to fight off the one holding her, all the while the third knight on the horse is trying to help out as well. Snow can't believe that he came back to help her, but her instinct is to run, so she heads for one of the other two horses and is instead grabbed and carried off by that third knight. After fighting off the second knight, Charming grabs a bow, one single arrow, and runs off into the woods so that he can try to help Snow. And in one beautifully clean shot, he hits the third knight and Snow is saved. Instead of just running off with the horse this time, she stays, and when Charming asks her if she's okay, she replies with, "You saved me," as if she was really surprised at that. The look on her face when he said that it seemed like the honorable thing to do, it said so much about what she was feeling in that moment. Clearly a lot of mixed emotions, but very much revealing of her feelings towards him. I especially love this next part because when he asks her if she's ready, her eyes definitely showed both sides of maybe he truly is an honorable man, and I still don't understand why he just saved my life. Haha. But the way they look at each other is just so pure and definitely draws this very clear connection between the two of them. But then Snow snaps out of whatever is really going on inside of her head and realizes that they still have to go and get his ring so that he can return to his fiancée. They discuss the trolls for a moment and then tease each other for a brief minute about Snow's lonely isolation and Charming's arranged marriage. I thought that was both funny and really cute. Okay, I have a few talking points right here. Around 12 minutes 13 seconds when Snow is packing up her temporary home, am I the only one that's surprised that she didn't already have on the necklace that had the magic dust inside of it? Like, why would she have taken that off? That just didn't quite make sense to me. Um, the next thing I wanted to bring up is the conversation between Snow and Charming while she was trapped in that net. It was just pure gold and full of great humor, subtle jokes, and just absolutely perfect all the way around. I really love how around 19 minutes 9 seconds when Snow and Charming are making their way through the woods, he's such a gentleman and helps her across that fallen tree. I just thought it was cute and I had to point that out. And I have to ask you guys something too. Literally every other black knight that we see that belongs to the evil queen always wears that black face covering. But yet, this one knight, other than the huntsman of course, just so happens to not be wearing his. I felt that was very odd and it didn't really feel right for one of the evil queen's knights to just consistently have his face exposed like that. Perhaps it was part of like his intimidation thing too. I don't really know. I just wanted to point that out to you guys. Maybe some of you know. I would like to know. Anyway, we cut back to Storybrooke where our search party continues to look for John Doe. Henry is trying to convince Mary and Emma that John Doe is looking for Mary Margaret, but they don't think it has anything to do with the storybook. Emma makes a hilarious remark about how Henry should be home and asks where Regina is, to which Henry responds, "She dropped me at the house," and then went right out. I'm sorry, but what is she doing leaving a 10-year-old at home by himself? Just had to throw that out there. Like, I know it's a safe town and all, but you don't know, okay? You don't know. Emma wants to take Henry back home, but he refuses, and just then, Sheriff Graham calls for them. Real quick, too, where did all the flashlights come from? Henry was the only one that I saw that had one whenever he first ran up to Emma and Mary. Just asking. Graham found John Doe's hospital wristband with blood on it. Everyone's understandably worried, but we're taken right back to the Enchanted Forest where Snow and Charming arrive at the Troll Bridge. Allow me to throw in here really quick. The blood on the wrist tag that they found in the woods could have just been from the IV, and based off of the amount, it's really nothing to be concerned about, but at least they're one step closer to finding him, right? Snow and Charming arrive at the bridge. Snow approaches the bridge first to place the gold coins on the side in order to basically call the trolls forward. She attempts to make a trade with them, but they're too skeptical about Charming being there with her. So, as one can only imagine, things take a turn and they begin to search Charming's belongings only to find that wanted poster with Snow's picture on it, and of course the necklace that has the magic dust in it, but they don't know what it is, so it's just cast aside, no second thought. Once the trolls begin to take Snow White captive for the reward on the poster, Charming takes charge, grabbing his sword from off the ground and begins to fight them off. He helps Snow slip past to safety, and she manages to grab both Charming's jewelry pouch as well as her magic dust. She continues running for a moment before she realizes that he's not behind her like he said he would be. It's very clear that she briefly thinks about taking her chance to run away from everyone, but she returns to the bridge to help Charming because it was the honorable thing for her to do. The trolls are about to cut off Charming's head, but Snow uses her dust to turn them into bugs. Charming thanks her for saving him, and I think it was great when she says, "How can I let Prince Charming die?" That was cute. And this is where they get their formal introduction, and she learns his name to be James. Finally, they leave, gathering all of their things, including the gold pieces that were used to summon the trolls, onto the bridge on their way out. I do have a few talking points right here. Given everything that Snow said to Charming before they summoned the troll, she was really trying to help him and really give him pointers that would help save his life. Granted, he ended up being the one saving her, she had to come back and save him, but still, she really tried to help him out before they actually approached that bridge. I have to say, too, it must have been hot in all those layers the trolls were wearing, and I bet it was difficult and painful to keep their mouths open like that the entire time. Perhaps even a little slobbery, too. And just as Charming pointed out, Snow uses the dust, the only thing she has to fight the evil queen with, to save his life. Enough said. And we're back in Storybrooke, where we see a bridge with the sign that reads Toll Bridge, only someone used some type of paint to make it read Troll Bridge, which I think it was just a perfect detail right there, and it definitely gives another hint to the truth behind Henry's words about the curse. The bridge is over a river that's very shallow and rocky, and Mary finds John Doe halfway in the water. They rush to get him out, and Graham calls for an ambulance. Mary is very worried and tries to bring him back to consciousness by performing CPR, which I would imagine she learned during her years of volunteering at the hospital. And when she does the mouth to mouth part, she begins to cry and then kisses him. Emma is holding Henry and trying to make it so that he can't see if anything bad really does happen. Thankfully, it doesn't, and John Doe wakes up. Mary asks him who he is, but he has no idea. Henry is very happy at the fact that John Doe is now awake, and Emma is clearly shocked at how that all played out. Talking point right here, I absolutely love how much Mary cares while they're trying to find John Doe, and you can really see that in her eyes right before she actually spots him in the water with her flashlight, and she kissed him. He is essentially a stranger to her, but yet she kissed the guy. Wowza. Yeah, I just said that. Oh god. We're having fun. Back to the story. They rush John back to the hospital where Dr. Whale and a bunch of nurses begin to make sure that he's okay. Suddenly, a woman walks into the room unexpectedly, clearly happy and relieved that he's okay, but no one seems to know who she is. No one except for the mayor, of course. The looks on both Mary and Regina's faces when this is happening is just absolutely priceless, and I loved every second of it. And now we know why Mayor Mills just dropped Henry off at home and went straight back out. She was going to find John Doe's quote-unquote wife and bring her to the hospital where he's been for years, and somehow she didn't know. Once again, we're taken away from Storybrooke and back to the Enchanted Forest where Snow White and Prince Charming are about to part ways. He gives her the gold and she gives him his pouch with the ring in it. He makes a joke about it not being her style, but she puts it on and they both have this moment of brief realization that they were meant to cross paths and come into each other's lives, no matter how brief that may have been. She says that it's not her at all and he just shakes his head, but that shake said so much. He tells her to be careful and that should she ever need anything, she finishes for him and says, "You'll find me." He replies with "always," and even though she says that she almost believes it, we all know in her heart she truly does. They say their goodbyes and she calls him Prince Charming for what they think will be the last time. And I can't help but wonder, when they took turns looking back at each other, is that when they realized that they had feelings for each other in real life? As Jennifer and Josh, I mean. I want to know so badly what moment it was that they realized that they truly had a connection outside of their characters. I don't know why. I really want to know. And if it was different for both of them, I want to know that too. Like, I really want to know. If any of you out there listening knows, please email me and tell me. onceuponaspoilerpod@gmail.com. Once again, that's onceuponaspoilerpod@gmail.com. I really want to know when they truly began to have feelings for each other. Anyways, back to the story. That pathway is just gorgeous too, especially with all of the green, the castle, and the way the sunlight is hitting it. It's just all absolutely breathtaking. And I have to admit, too, watching them walk away from each other is definitely heartbreaking given what we know about them and their future, but it's all part of the story, and I absolutely love everything about it. And of course, her smile at him before she turns back and starts walking again, it was just so pure, and there was so much joy behind it. Okay, I know I just said it, but I have to say it again. And yes, this is a talking point. Watching Snow White and Prince Charming part ways along that path after putting on his mother's ring was definitely heartbreaking. They clearly do not want to part ways with one another, and it's just beautiful, and I love it every single time I see it. Her smile is so bright, and his face, it lights up. I can't express how much I love that scene. Anywho, back at the hospital in Storybrooke, where Mary is looking at John Doe through the glass, Regina reveals his name to be David Nolan and his wife is Catherine, and says that the joy on Catherine's face has put her in a forgiving mood. She then tells Henry that he's grounded because he left the house once again without her permission, and Emma is very upset at this entire situation. Catherine comes to thank them for finding her husband, and Mary tells her that she does not understand how she didn't know that he was there in a coma for all that time. Catherine then uses this to explain their argument, and she also tells them that she just assumed that he left with no intentions of coming back. Emma is surprised that she didn't at least try to look for him, but she says she simply thought he left town. Mary Margaret tells Catherine that it's great that they get a second chance, but she is definitely holding back tears. Regina smirks at this, and Dr. Whale comes out of the room to give them the update on David. He's okay, but has no memories of basically anything. Also, he tells them that it's somewhat of a medical miracle. He simply woke up, and his first instinct was to go and find something. Ironic that this is how he chose to tell them what happened, though, isn't it? Henry says that he was looking for someone, and Regina has a wonderful look on her face of, Jesus, why does he have to be right? They go to leave, but Henry left his book bag on purpose so that he could go back and tell Mary that David was looking for her, not to believe anyone else, and that they belonged together. Two talking points right here really quick. That cringy feeling and look Emma got after Regina made her remark about being in a forgiving mood was absolutely fantastic. And I love how Henry didn't hold back in saying someone when Dr. Whale was trying to explain what happened with David. He is not afraid to tell the truth and to stand up for it and himself, and I truly love that about his character. Emma catches up with them as they go to walk out to Regina's car and confronts her about the fact that none of what happened makes any sense. She just so happens to find someone that knows the John Doe who's been laid up in the hospital with no way of reaching out to the public to help identify him the night after he up and goes missing. Regina makes light of the situation and even jokes about the possibility of her using a spell on Catherine. She very quickly comes up with the story of going back and looking at security footage to find him talking in his sleep, saying Catherine's name, and that's how she put the pieces together and figured out who she was. Sadly, Emma believes this story, but I suppose it makes sense given how clever Regina was about it. After making some remarks about Marion being alone and how grateful she is to have Henry, she tells Emma that she's willing to forgive her rudeness and says that not having someone is the worst curse imaginable. Ironic considering what her curse did to literally everyone in town, including herself. Talking point right here. Emma is supposed to be able to tell when people are lying to her. Once again, I must ask, how could she not tell that Regina was feeding her a load of crap? And on top of it, uses her loneliness as a needle to poke her with. I think this is what sends Emma to do what she does next. But I had to point that out because, I don't know. We fade back to David's hospital room where he and Catherine are talking and Mary is still standing outside of the room looking in. They meet eyes when David's hugging Catherine and we get a number of emotions just from looking at his face. We go from him looking basically dazed and confused to wondering and curiosity to basically feelings and connecting with Mary Margaret. Mary smiles at him but then looks down at her green ring and starts fiddling with it. I do the same thing when I'm feeling anxious, so I definitely felt that. But the camera fades back to Mary's face, only this time she's in her apartment sitting on the stairs, still fiddling with that ring. There's a knock on the door and she opens it to find Emma there asking if the spare room is still available. This is obviously a huge step for Emma, and I like how she expresses that and looking so nervous and kind of anxious, but I also like the smile she had on her face too. It was just a beautiful moment. Mary lets Emma in and has this beautiful smile on her face too that definitely tells me that she's very happy about this and certainly feels not so alone. If you think about it though, Emma just essentially asked her mother if she could move in, and Mary does not hesitate to open her home up to Emma. Final talking point right here, and I know I just said it, but the look of pure joy in Mary Margaret's eyes when Emma asked to stay, it was just beautiful, and I loved every bit of that moment. Like, I absolutely love the connection that they already have and feel towards each other, but the fact that they don't understand it is it's hilarious to me. But I still, once again, they are essentially strangers to each other. Yet, Mary Margaret, she opens up her home and her heart. It's very beautiful. And that, sadly, is the end of this episode. It was just absolutely fantastic, and I truly love how deep these emotions are getting. You also really have to appreciate how well the actors and actresses do at expressing those emotions. Sometimes you can just look at them and tell everything that's going on inside of their characters' heads, and very occasionally, we really need that in order to help us understand what exactly is going on. Every single person that was involved in the show is absolutely brilliant, and I will continue to say that throughout this entire podcast. And now that we've been through the episode, we know that the man in the trees behind the logo was indeed a troll from the bridge. I want to thank you all so much for joining me for this week's episode of Once Upon a Spoiler. Please come back and join me for next week's episode as we discuss Season 1, Episode 4 of Once Upon a Time. I would just like to take a moment to say thank you again to Traffic Dubstep for the intro and outro music. The track is called Hibernation, and I will add the links for you all in the description of this episode if you would like to check them out. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me at onceuponaspoilerpod@gmail.com. Again, that's onceuponaspoilerpod@gmail.com. Use the subject line to reference which episode, or type in question if you would like to ask me anything. Add in your first name if you want me to say it on this here podcast, or if you wish to remain anonymous, and I'll go through, pull some at random to be discussed for our specially dedicated butterfly episodes. Alright, my beautiful butterflies, flap those gorgeous wings and let's celebrate this beautiful life together. Thank you all again for joining me, and I wish you all a most wonderful week.